All right, let's get right into it. If you've got a tech exam coming up, you know the SDLC is a topic you absolutely cannot skip. So today, we're going to break down the software development lifecycle. Think of this as the playbook that turns a vague idea into actual working code. We're going to go from chaos to clarity, giving you exactly what you need to know for test day. Let's do this. So let's start with the big question. How is software really built? I mean, if you don't have a solid plan, it can be a total mess. Seriously. It's often unpredictable, super inefficient, and feels less like engineering and more like, I don't know, just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks. And this is what that chaos looks like. You talk about an idea, you hammer out some code, you test it out, find a bug, fix the bug, and boom, you're right back where you started, caught in the exact same loop. You're just spinning your wheels. This kind of reactive cycle just burns through time and money, and what you end up with is a piece of software that's just kind of patched together, not properly built. Okay, so how do we get out of that chaotic loop and into a process that's actually controlled and predictable? Well, the answer is simple: structure. We need a real, formal game plan to guide us. Now, for anyone studying for an exam, this slide is key. A structured SDLC isn't just about creating more paperwork. No way. It's about bringing order to the chaos. It forces everyone to step back and look at the big picture. It stops a team of really smart people from making a bunch of individually good choices that, when you put them all together, are a complete disaster. It's the skeleton that holds teamwork and progress tracking together. At the very core of any SDLC is what we call the software process. If you're taking notes, you're going to want to star this definition. It's a structured set of activities with clear outcomes that produces a software product. Simple as that. It's the engine that powers the whole life cycle, turning plans on a whiteboard into something real you can actually use. All right, let's start our tour of the different models with the OG, the classic, the one that really started this whole thing, the Waterfall Model. The whole idea here is super simple and straight line. Just picture a real waterfall. The water only flows one way, right? Down. It's the same here. Each phase, like requirements, then design, then coding, has to be 100% complete and signed off before you can even think about starting the next one. There is no going back upstream. Now, here's a classic exam topic, the trade-offs of the waterfall model. On the plus side, it's really simple. The whole process is rigid, it's clear, it's easy to manage, and you have specific things you have to deliver at each stage. But that rigidity, that's also its biggest weakness. It kind of assumes that all the project requirements are perfectly set in stone from day one, which almost never happens, making it incredibly hard and expensive to change anything later on. So you might be wondering, does anyone actually use this anymore? And the answer is yeah, for sure. It still has its place. It's fantastic for short projects where the requirements are crystal clear and aren't going to change. Or in industries with a ton of regulations, where you need that super strict, documented, step-by-step process to prove you did everything by the book. But let's be real. In the real world, things change all the time. That huge limitation of the waterfall model is exactly what led to the development of more flexible and adaptive ways of building things, like the iterative and spiral models. Okay. Pay attention here, because this is another comparison that trips people up on exams all the time. Iterative versus incremental. Here's the easiest way to think about it. An iterative model builds a rough version of the whole system right away, and then refines it over and over again. Think of it like sculpting a statue from a block of marble. An incremental model builds the system one functional piece at a time. Like building with Legos, you add one complete block after another. So remember, iterative refines, incremental adds. So what happens when your project is gigantic, super complex, and really high risk? That's where the spiral model comes in. It's basically a hybrid. It takes the repeating cycles of an iterative approach and combines them with the formal steps of waterfall, but it adds one absolutely crucial ingredient, a massive focus on risk analysis in every single loop. So, every time the project goes around the spiral, it hits these 4 checkpoints. First, you figure out your goals for this specific cycle. Second, you analyze everything that could possibly go wrong. Third, you actually build and test a piece of the system. And finally, you plan out the next loop. This lets the project grow and evolve while you're constantly keeping an eye on and reducing risk. The huge advantage here is that you can spot problems super early and you have the flexibility to make changes along the way. But what's the trade-off? Well, it's complexity. This model is way harder to manage than Waterfall, and it's not something you can just wing.
It really requires a team that has serious experience in risk assessment to make it work.
Nowadays, you can't just build software that works. You have to build software that's secure. And that brings us to a really important modern update, the Security Development Lifecycle, or SecDLC.
The philosophy here is so simple, but it's a total game changer. Security cannot be an afterthought. You can't just build the whole thing and then try to sprinkle some security on top at the end. It has to be baked in from the very beginning, a part of every single phase of the project.
So what does that actually look like? Well, way at the beginning, during the requirements phase, you're doing things like threat modeling, which is just a fancy way of saying you're thinking like a hacker and figuring out how someone might attack your system. Then, in the design phase, you focus on reducing the attack surface, basically minimizing the number of doors and windows an attacker could try to get through.
And this continues all the way through. When you're coding, you use secure practices and tools that scan your code for weaknesses. When you're testing, you use techniques like fuzz testing, which is literally just throwing tons of random, weird data at your application to see if you can make it crash. And right before release, you do one last security review and make sure you have a plan ready for what to do if something bad does happen.
You know, a process, no matter how good it is only one part of the story. To really understand the whole context of a project, we can use a simple framework called the 4 Ps.
The first P, and honestly, probably the most important one, is people. This is your team, your clients, your managers. If you don't have the right people with the right skills who can work together, even the world's most perfect process is going to fail. They're the heart of the whole operation.
The second P is process. This is everything we've been talking about, right? The SDLC model you pick, the steps you follow. This is the roadmap. It's the set of directions that guides the people toward the finish line.
Third, you've got the product. This is the thing you're actually building, the tangible result. At the end of the day, the success of the whole project is judged by whether this product works, meets expectations, and actually delivers real value.
And finally, the 4th P is the project environment. This is all the stuff happening around the project, like the company culture, what's happening in the market, any laws or regulations. A good project manager gets this context because it helps them make smart decisions and steer around potential problems. And that brings us to one last thing to think about. We have seen these models change over time, from rigid waterfalls to flexible spirals and security-focused frameworks. But now, with AI starting to write and even debug code, what's next? What will the next version of this playbook look like when humans and AI are building software as partners? It's a pretty wild question, and it's happening right now.